Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Iowa soccer supporters. I'm Ben Brackett, your Soccer Talk co-host, alongside my good buddy Blake Sievers. Looking comfortable over there, Blake?
It is. It's our little plug, right, for the YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, comment.
Boy's got his shoes off, feet up. He's loving life.
It is. It's, 74 degrees.
Weatherman, he knows. He knows what the weather is at all
out of
times.
the north. What a day. What a day, and what a great time of year.
Steve, I was thinking today about just state tournament, back to the olden days when it was the Johnson Dragons against the Valley Tigers. I don't think there's anybody that I feel like we just hated each other there for a couple hours.
Had to.
If you think about
Absolutely,
it, right?
We did. Yeah.
I wonder if we're going to see any of that this next week, because we've got an awesome lineup of games with all these boys teams and a lot of local matchups and regular matchups of teams that play regularly. So I got to think there's going to be some feistiness in there.
I think that's a great way to put it, Ben.
I love that. That's my favorite part. What about you, Matthew Sahag? Welcome, the Titan Tactician. What do you think about this coming week?
It's I can't wait for it. It's the most exciting day in soccer, the quarterfinal games. And so the only thing that kind of sucks about this year is we're in two different locations and all over the place. We're not in county.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it goes. We're gonna be busy for sure, on the run and enjoying a lot of good soccer. So let's just jump right into it. So all the boys had their sub-state finals regionally. That was the top 32, if you will. Then we're down to the what? Sorry, I messed that up. That was the round of 16. Now you're down to the last 8. So you've got. Let's start in the 1A, Sievers. What do you think? We've got West Central Valley. They play Hudson. Oh, no, actually, let's stop. Let's go back, because this is a little weird, right? Tell me how this is going to happen. We've got quarterfinals have been reseeded after.
Yeah, so I guess we can talk. Yeah,
final.
so we'll talk 1A.
Yep.
There is no bracket, so you've got the four first round games, and 1A. Interesting, because you've got teams from all corners of the state playing each other at all sorts of different locations. So it's a little, I don't know, I'd just be curious what went into this, because, I don't know, you got Council Bluffs way out on the west side against Regina, kind of on the east side, playing at Urbandale, so meeting in the middle. Then you've got West Sioux up in Sioux City playing West Liberty down in the southeast corner of the state, playing at Mediacom. And then you've got Van Meter, who's local to Des Moines, playing North Fayette Valley, which is up in Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Dubuque, all up there, playing at Iowa.
And then it seems you skipped over West Central Valley and
That's
Hudson.
what I was going to get there. They get to Hudson hosts.
Which is interesting, too, because West Central Valley is just about an hour west of Des Moines and near Stewart. And then Hudson is up near Waterloo, Cedar Falls. So that's a big old drive for West Central Valley. And it seems in these other brackets you're sort of splitting the travel time. These other matchups.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the boys have done it right. Their method is, we're going to literally seed 1 through 8 at the state, and we're not doing anything regionally. The 1 plays the 8, 2 plays 7, and forward, which I think is probably why we're in the situation for the locations that we're in.
Well, fair enough. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out and what that sort of contributes one way or the other. I know when we look at these matchups, as you ran through them, we've seen a lot of goals of the week from West Sioux, I believe. Some pretty spicy goals. So I got to believe they've got some players there that are gonna be fun to watch. We followed Van Meter closely last year. They made the state final. They're still a pretty new program, right? Earlier in their history, they're less than 5 years old, right, Blake?
I have no idea.
No idea?
If that.
Yeah. Anyway, I know it's a young program, and then they'll find themselves playing against last year's state champion, North Fayette Valley. Pretty cool to get to play at the University of Iowa, I would guess.
Sorry, Ben. Yeah, you're right. Van Meter, the Waldrons.
That's why
within 5 years, there was the first game we went to.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why
we were.
Sorry,
I was looking for you to.
I'll tell you here in a
validate
second.
me.
There's just some confusion. So sorry.
It's all right. So then, I don't know much about a lot of these 1A teams otherwise. So it's a little bit of a crapshoot. Do we see anything on Bound that helps us make some decisions?
Didn't we cover North Fayette Valley?
Well,
First
they,
game of
yeah,
the
they
week?
came to the futsal event.
Yep, and then we watched
then-
them play. We watched them play remotely, but then we cover them in their game.
Center Point Urbana, wasn't it?
That's right.
Well, they smacked them around a little bit.
They sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would just say defending. I mean, that's an interesting matchup. Defending the Class 1A state title game from last year, right, is the first round matchup. And then we've got some insight on West Central Valley. They beat Pella Christian 2-1. So I'm going to go with the winner of Van Meter North Fayette Valley. This is the wins it all, and I'm going to take Van Meter to get over the hump. And I don't know, Ben. Did you see the text we just got, Ben?
No.
So we talked a little bit about there's some big time confusion on seeding after the first round of games, if the brackets get reseeded or not.
You can
We've now got conflicting reports from two coaches.
two high up coaches, also one who may or may not be affiliated with the board or like the.
Well, yeah, so
the board.
there's confusion. So one said, yes, after the semis will get reseeded, meaning the top seed plays the lowest seed. And then we had one coach that said, no, it's just going to be like the old days of the brackets where you advance and you play whoever is on your side. So that throws us for a loop for this podcast, doesn't it?
We're really, yeah, we're gonna have some trouble figuring that out. Well, let's just
Who's your predictions, though, for 1A? Matt, what do you think? Ben, what do you think?
I'm with you on that prediction. I think the team that wins that first round game is going to win it all, and I'm going with Van Meter. First state championship in program history. In less than 5 years, the Waldron boys get it done.
That would be really special. I'm gonna go with a little bit of a dark horse pick and go with Council Bluffs St. Albert. They've got a player with 39 goals this year, Kyle Irwin. He's a junior. He's basically, there's a couple other players with more goals than him, but not by a whole lot. I think he's going to probably be a handful. I'm just going to go ahead and say he carries his team to their first state title that we know about. Maybe they've won
Love it.
in the past. I don't think they have. Okay, so let's talk 2A.
Kind of in the same situation a little bit for location of games, right? Knoxville, Gilbert are similar. Or they're close to each other a little bit.
Relatively central Iowa.
Yeah. Burlington, Williamsburg, relatively eastern Iowa. And then now you get a little wonky because you got Dubuque on one side, northeast, against Sioux City, Bishop Heelan defending champions,
When you
northwest.
see that too, Blake, they'll play at 5:30 at Gilbert before the Knoxville-Gilbert game. So good one for the neutral who wants to get a couple good games in. And then that last game is Webster City versus Sioux Center at Dordt University. Now, man,
So I love, just real quick, I love Knoxville. Dylan Mick still coaching there. They've participated in some of our stuff. It's been a few years, but clearly changed the trajectory of that program, getting to state, which is pretty cool, against Gilbert, who is just an absolute buzzsaw once again.
yeah. And we just touch on that quick. The Webster City Sioux Center game, Dordt is in Sioux Center, so basically a home game for Sioux Center. So what do you think? You think Gilbert's going to go all the way again, Siebes?
I think I do. I think it's going to be. I do. I think they're gonna come out on top.
Well, it's always interesting. They have the sort of advantage, if you will, because of their location and the size of the school. They have the opportunity to play, some larger schools and get some really good competition that a lot of times can help them prepare. So we think it's Gilbert. I'm going to go ahead and agree with you, Siebes. Although I bet Sioux Center is going to be pretty tricky as well. And Sioux City Bishop Heelan, defending champs. So Matthew.
I've got Gilbert. I remember they went deep last year, didn't they?
They won it.
Yeah. So I remember them. I thought they were far and away the best team watching them last year, and so I'm going with Gilbert again for the repeat.
Okay, 3A. Now things start to get really interesting. One, because we know a little bit more, so that makes it more interesting, but also a lot of really interesting matchups. Top side of the bracket, you've got Cedar Rapids, Washington being hosted by Dallas Center Grimes. Dallas Center Grimes defending state champion. Spencer at Urbandale is the next game. Urbandale finally making it back to state after years and years and years. I couldn't tell you how long it's been, but that used to be the Valley rival back in the day. So, now that they've dropped down to 3A, good to see them back up top, or on the top. Spencer always a good team as well. Des Moines Hoover will play against Iowa City Liberty. Super interesting matchup, right? Hoover started the season on fire. We're playing with a player that was too old at a certain point and basically had to forfeit almost all their games. So they're going to be tough to beat, no doubt. Iowa City Liberty, coached by Coach Matt Harding, who has won a state championship recently and has a really good squad, is our understanding. So that'll be just an interesting matchup. There's probably a lot of really good players on the field. And then here's a really fun one, Indianola at Norwalk, a really local matchup, Battle of the Purples. What do we think about that, Siebes?
Well, I was just to say,
As a purple guy yourself.
yeah, I love that Heath's got him. Heath has him back. So they just played 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and Norwalk won 4-3. So
If that's any indication, we're in for a good
I
game.
love it. As a neutral,
And
I'm gonna love
Norwalk,
that one.
like, super experienced at the state tournament, right? Like, they're almost always there. Not necessarily winning it every year, but they're always there.
Yep.
So that's going to be a tough one for Indianola. I'd love to see Heathcliff get them through and just see how they do. They've got a couple of really good players, I think, in Indianola. Is that right? Do we know names? Joey?
Yeah, you got JoJo. JoJo played at Johnson, won a state title with them last year. Central midfielder, athletic.
Transferred to Indianola?
Back. Yep.
Really? Interesting.
Yep. And then they've got the Martinez boy up top, left-footed boy last year who was dynamic. Gave Hoover a bunch of problems in that first game, opening game that Hoover prevailed. And then, I don't know, you got DCG, right? Former state champions as well.
Yeah, they'll be without some of their really strong players they had last year, right? Like Tate McDermott. They had Cy, some guys that went on and continued playing. But so they've left obviously a lasting impression on the squad because they're back at the state tournament. Man, this is going to be a tough one. I would love to see an all-Central Iowa semifinal and go DCG, Urbandale, Hoover, and then the winner of Indianola and Norwalk. I think that would be super fun. I also think that potentially pretty likely. Thoughts?
So I know that, I've seen Urbandale play this year just because I watched them play Dowling on like the Huddle Fan, and they beat Dowling. They were pinned in the whole game, but they beat them 1-0, and they just kind of sat in. So I think, first of all, Urbandale is going to win that game. I love seeing them in the 8-2. I just don't know if we don't hear about a ton of Urbandale teams anymore going deep into a athletic tournament, do we? I mean,
Remember
I
they had the
don't know.
the school board vote on whether to stay in conference or leave the conference due to kind of competitive levels.
Right.
It's crazy though when
I love
think,
that they stayed, by the way.
Yeah, it's
For now.
interesting to me when I think of. I mean, Blake, you can chime in on this too. Like when we were playing in the early 2000s, right? Urbandale had like the best team in the state. I think they won it a couple times, at least once.
Mm-hmm.
They had some of the best players. They had Armin Mujdik, they had Richie Hurd.
They were the transfer giants before that was a thing.
Yeah, they were. They were. Kids were coming in to play with them just because they wanted to win and play part of a really good program. They had all those Urbandale Freedom and Urbandale Prism and Storm. Yeah. Anyway, interesting to just think that they fell so far, but then now they've kind of bumped themselves back up. I love that. It's a great story, and I think Urbandale as a school is an interesting one because just like where it's located, right? It's landlocked, and they're surrounded by all these suburban schools that they're just a few minutes away from. So a lot of these school kids get pulled away and they go to other schools.
I would hope that Urbandale draws a big crowd of that game. That's at their home field, right?
Yep.
In the quarterfinal, I think they're gonna. I've already said it, but I think they're gonna get through that one easily against Spencer. The other game I'm looking at here is Hoover versus Liberty. It's interesting. They have to go to Liberty, right? And that's because of the forfeited games, no doubt. I've got strong feelings about that whole situation still. This is going to sound really harsh. I don't think Hoover should be in the tournament based on what happened. So it just because I just don't like this matchup. Like I don't like that they could possibly be the most talented team, yet they're traveling away to Liberty. I don't think that's really fair to Liberty, quite frankly, or any of the other teams. So I'm gonna go Liberty in that game, regardless. Remember, Liberty season was ended early last year because of the 4 red card rule as well.
That's right.
Right. So and I think that was a heartbreaking thing because they had a good squad last year as well. So they're back at it this year. I think I'm gonna go Liberty. I think they're due. Ooh. I think they were hard done by that rule last year. And I think Hoover, it's going to be a tough trip for them. It's a 5:00 kick, right? So these guys are out of town by noon or 1:00 or whatever. So it's a long day for Hoover regardless. And then you got Indianola Norwalk at Norwalk. I think that's a fun one because Indianola, we just haven't seen boys teams that are super, super talented that are getting to that place. So I'm going to pick Indianola over Norwalk. I think it'd be great for the school and the community to get that team into the semifinal.
And then we finally have some clarification. Semifinals will be reseeded according to the rankings. So if you want to talk Hoover, if they are going to get back to the state title game, they are going to have to beat
over and over
the highest ranked team 3 times, which uphill battle big time.
Well, I think if I'm gonna make an overall prediction here, do you got?
Well, I would just like
Let's go,
the re-ranking things. I just don't like that.
It's got to be. I mean, there's got to be a reason.
Well, do you remember? If you recall, Blake, in one of our recent conversations with the association, they mentioned how this style of tournament now, where we've got the regional sub-state final, then you've got the regional quarterfinals, and then the finals at semifinal and final at MediaCom, is very similar to the football in the fall, where they do the same thing. They reseed, and then they get to the UNI Dome for the semifinals and final, or championship game, whatever you want to call it. And they mentioned, the person we were speaking to just mentioned that it was very similar to that. I wonder if that has anything to do with it, just to sort of like make
it uniform.
All the sports similar. Yeah, exactly. I don't necessarily love it, but I think that might be the reasoning.
At some point,
it could be.
If the 8 seed knocks off the 1 seed, they are now the 1 seed for me. Like, how do you re-rank them anywhere else?
You're not.
They've knocked off the 1 seed, right? So to me, you should just be trading spots, just like you would in March Madness and basketball. I think we talked, before the pod about that. So I just don't like that at all. I think that I hate that, actually. I really don't like that they're going to re-rank that, because when you get into these these quarterfinal games, it's all about momentum, right?
For sure.
So you're reshuffling the deck, and you're changing the momentum of the tournament, I think, right inside the tournament. Plus, everyone's talking about getting to state, right? Now, doesn't it have to be getting to the semifinal? I mean, it takes away, I think, from the whole process. So I don't know about the background, but that doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like anything, things change, right? And so, as much as we've loved the prior.
Did that happen last year? Did they reseed?
No, there was a bracket that was.
Yeah. I just wonder if a lot of it.
There's
might
just
have
major
to do with,
changes this year in a lot of different areas, right?
Yeah. And to your point, Matt, you don't like it. That's everybody's entitled to their opinion. The question becomes, like, how democratic was the process, right? Like, is this something all the coaches weighed in on? Is this something
you saw their social
about?
media post, right, that we saw the other day? There's some boys that were upset, coaches that were upset due to plaques, I believe, maybe state qualifier plaques not being presented, every team maybe not being in the program, and only kind of highlighting and focusing, I guess those are their words, the top 4 teams that make it. So I think they were saying, hey, it almost feels like a top 4 now, and the other, if you lose the first round game,
it's just like a glorified sub-state.
There you go. Yeah. All right. So who's your winner, boys? 3A. Now you know that's going on. Hoover definitely is not my pick, because
that's just gonna be tough.
They're gonna have to beat the top team all 3 times. I'm gonna go Colin Lane back-to-back, DCG, Mustangs.
Matthew.
Urbandale.
I'm going to join the Matthew bandwagon here on this too. I'd love to see
go.
Urbandale do it. No question. Jayhawks.
One more point on that. Just that community is it's landlocked, right? So when all these other communities are growing,
That's
like,
what I mean. They're
they're
forced
landlocked.
to be stagnant,
Yeah,
whether
right.
they want to or not.
So for them to get a good side, like I'm rooting for them.
Yeah,
Let's go.
for sure. It'll be interesting, though, no doubt. Now to the big boys, Class 4A. Super interesting matchups all across the board. We've been following it all year. I think we can agree that there's not a runaway favorite right now, at least based on results. Now, we've heard people say that certain teams are the best team. We'll talk about it as we go. But let's start at the top end of the bracket. West Des Moines Valley with the number 1 seed. They'll host Pleasant Valley, Wayne Ward's squad from the opposite side of the state, who was recently quoted in the Quad City Times, Matthew Wright, mentioning that this may be the best squad he's ever had. And we watched him play, what was it, 4 or 5 years ago when they won the state tournament, and they were a gaming squad, if you will, right? That every game they had a game plan, and they executed it, and they won 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, and they were our state title winners.
And they knocked off Prairie in a shootout. So I remember those. Those coaches love each other over there.
I'm sure
I
that
think
was
it's a nice way to say
that was
it.
heated on the sideline. I love that. I think that one's going to be a really tough matchup for the Tigers. Valley is one of the teams that people have said is the best team in the state. We've seen them play once. We watched them play Centennial. They were a handful, but they also lost their first game of the season to Ames, which is an interesting one, right? Because Ames is back at the state tournament as well, and since then Valley has gone on like a 18 game winning streak. So I think they're going to be tough to beat. We'll come back and give our judgment there. The next game's Dowling Catholic. They'll play at Johnston. Ankeny will play at Roosevelt. That's the Ankeny Hawks. And then the Ames Little Cyclones will take on the Iowa City High. Are they the Little Hawks? Oh, I love that. Little Cyclone Hawks matchup in Iowa City at the University of Iowa. And Iowa City High having an excellent year this year.
Mm-hmm.
What are our thoughts, fellas?
Do you want to start at Dowling Johnston or the other end, Ames City High?
Well, I mean, we can just go to it because it doesn't matter what order we do it because they're going to get reseeded. So, which matchup do you like the most? Which one are you most excited about?
Because it's a rematch for me of the final last year, I like Johnston Dowling.
The rematch of the final is really interesting because, one, you've got the Johnny Mendez effect in full swing, right? He didn't play last year. This year he's on absolute fire. Every game we've watched or kept an eye on with him, teams are doing everything they can to keep him out of the game, and he still finds a way to carry the team, whether it's goals, whether it's assists. His mentality seems like it's totally changed, and I think Drake's going to be really happy to have him in the fall. Then you've got Johnston, who last year there was a little drama around Johnston, right? They had a big influx of players that transferred in. So you had maybe some other schools that were frustrated by that. And then now we've talked about multiple teams that have gained a player from Johnston. So
and they
Johnston
started
may be
off
a little depleted.
Remember, they started off not well. Jimmy's, we put his rear end on the hot seat.
His rear
and
end.
look where they're at again.
It's fair enough. I assume you're going Drags in this one, Steves.
Have to.
So I was at the game. I was at the sub-state final game, Dowling versus Iowa City West. So two thoughts on that. Number one, West had a similar start to the season like Johnston, right? They had a struggle, and then they came on towards the end, and they were a very good team. So that's a solid win for Dowling in the sub-state final. Like I don't think you can ignore that because, for me, West is every bit as good as a lot of these teams in the final eight. You just draw. It was just a really, really tough sub-state final game,
Well,
and I know there were
Johnson
other
with
ones.
a big win against Joaquin Northwest, right?
Yeah,
Another team that we talked about is potentially a state contender.
I agree with that, but when you look at the state matchups in the last couple of years, West has been there, right? So
Yeah, 100%.
that's a huge win. The second thing is the Mendez effect in that game. West was up 1-0, and then at halftime, and it took Mendez like a 6-minute time frame to take that game over, and he scored 2 goals that I don't think any other player in the state scores. The first one, Crowder has a really good ball into him, and he just kind of helps it on.
That was super slick, a super slick goal.
I mean,
it's like a different level of goal.
Right. And the second one, then he just like wriggles out of trouble, like just twists guys up left and right, and then puts it in the left-hand corner, and then that was it. And so the other huge factor too for Dowling too is Foth is back, which gives them a really solid center back at the back. And so I think with Mendez, Foth back,
and we know Mendez loves a big game. Like he lives for it.
yeah. So we'll say that. So that's also my favorite game to go watch. So this is usually the time in the year that I start picking teams as well, and usually start picking against Johnston. So just so I stay consistent.
I love it.
Has to, right? He's got to go with Dowling.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just
I mean, let me get my pick out here.
Well, we know what it is.
Bracket. So for Zell, I'm sorry. Johnson boys, I'm sorry. I'm going with Dowling. I'm actually at the school now as the girls coach as well. So I am even rooting for Dowling even more this year. Let's go.
Well, I think it'll be interesting because what Matt sort of buried the lead here. Johnston sort of dismantled Dowling this year, 5-2. It sounded like it was a tight game, and then all of a sudden Johnston kind of blew the doors open late. So it'll be close no matter what.
Don't forget about last year's final, right? So Johnston wins that final 3-0, and that was a disappointing final, right? Because like you're hoping for a close final,
closer game.
But it wasn't.
No, Johnston was clearly the better team, at least on the night.
Absolutely.
So yeah, man, I hate to do this too. But I'm just loving watching Johnny Mendez play, and I'm not usually the kind of guy that's gonna like talk a whole lot about a player that I enjoy, but I like Johnny a lot, and I'm hoping. I guess I'm rooting for him as well, and rooting for the squad. I think
we want to see him 3 more times.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I want to see him play 3 more games, and I think that Dowling, they're just like they don't give up. Right? They just keep fighting and fighting and fighting. And I just haven't seen Johnson play this year. So sorry, Jimbo. I love you, and I will. I think I probably owe you. I'll wear the Johnson Dragon shirt if you guys win the state title this year. But
I would just say, Mendez, if you get man marked, don't end up at left back like you did against Lincoln.
Oh, I by the way, I've got some insight on your guys' comment about left back. I heard some people were like, I don't know what game those guys were watching.
Yeah.
He didn't play left back.
He came to talk to the coaching
literally
staff,
put
him in sort of the left back.
He put himself in left back. He got ran at, and then he's like, "This is silly," and he got out of there. But like,
I just heard that your analysis was way off. That's what I heard.
Touche. Let's I think to me next most exciting game is Ankeny Roosevelt. Roosevelt having a heck of a year under Big Daddy Matthew Ream. Coach Ream, I'm excited for you, even though we don't always see eye to eye because you're so tall. But the word on the street is you guys are the best team in the state. Roosevelt is the best team in the state. We've heard it from multiple folks. People have played against him. People have watched him play. So exciting, super exciting. I might be at that MediaCom game if you guys are out in Johnston. Ankeny, the Hawks, led by Landon Benge. They're a high-scoring team, and they're a team that's susceptible at the back, right?
This game might end 7-5. It might be the best game to watch.
Yeah,
with all the goals.
I'll be curious to see how Roosevelt does. It sounds like they're a high-powered attack, or that's what we've seen. I don't know how tight they are at the back. It sounds like they've got a really strong center back. He's one of these guys that transferred away to Johnston, transferred back. Isaiah Lamarck. Okay,
going to Western Illinois.
So, that leads me to believe that they'll be tight and strong in the back. I would guess Roosevelt goes through there. That's my pick. And I live in Des Moines, so.
I think a couple of I'm going to pick Roosevelt here too for a couple of different reasons, but
Matt and I are really aligned today. I like it. We're on the couch.
Lincoln took Ankeny, in the sub-state final, all the way to overtime, and Ankeny was up 1-0. And the game ended 2-2 after regulation within the last 5 minutes of the game. So,
and we watched them play. Remember, we watched them play against Ames, and it was same type of game. They were up 4-1, and then they gave up a boatload of goals to go 4-4, and then they scored twice late to win it.
Right, exactly. So there's two things I think. First of all, that took a lot for them to beat Lincoln, right? And so I think they're coming off of a game where they're coming off a real high, the challenge, and I think that the potential to dip in your performance is there. That happens sometimes. The other thing I look to is Roosevelt took care of Lincoln pretty easily this year as well, right? So they won 3-0 after 40 minutes, So I know you can't necessarily do that analysis backwards and forwards for all these games, but that's why I'm going to pick Roosevelt in that game over Ankeny.
The one thing I will say, Benj is obviously dynamic, right? Every time he gets behind, he usually scores. Roosevelt does have a player that got sent off, so they're down a starter, and it will be interesting. I like it, but
So I was just trying to see if they'd met this year. They were supposed to play.
they scrimmaged.
At the
In
beginning,
Jimmy's
yes, they
little
played in the preseason, but we don't know. They don't show that result, so that's just another little wrinkle to it. I find it interesting. So Blake, did we get a pick out of you?
I'll go with Ankeny just to.
Oh,
Although all of my Keck boys are at Roosevelt, so I'm torn.
so what's whoa?
Be
so what are we
loyal,
doing?
man.
Well,
Be
yeah,
loyal
they
to
get a
your
big
boys.
bonus for each
I hope
win
they, I hope
get.
they quit on you.
Big bonus.
So
An
a
NIL
little,
bonus from
yeah.
Keck.
I don't know if that's legal though. I'll be right. We'll worry about that after they win. So yeah, I'll go Ankeny though, just because Ben's just so dynamic.
I like that pick from you, Blake, because the boys are going to harass
I
you
hope.
big time.
Yeah.
I hope they all don't show up for work.
Last game of the first round, Benny.
Well, no, we got two to talk about quick, right? We haven't really talked about Pleasant Valley. I briefly mentioned at the beginning we didn't get picks out of you guys.
So yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and pick my Tigers since they're on such a high, and also, I'm a Tiger.
I'm not going against Wayne.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really disappointed not to talk to Wayne like 3 times, but I just think Aziz is going to be there, man.
And the tactician, I know he's got some big thoughts on this.
So the Quad City Times article was written May 8th, right? And so you click on it, you got to beat the paywall, right? So what I did, I don't have a subscription, but I was able to take
You're
some
able to beat
screenshots
oh.
before it popped up on you. So I've got some quotes from Wayne Ward here in the article. So he says, to be honest, in the 7 years I've been doing this job, this is the most exciting team I've had going forward. Our front five, Dale, Dominic, Vasquez, and Montez. I don't think there's a better or more dynamic front five in the state. So, I mean, that's pretty interesting, right? Because usually we're used to them grinding out these one goal victories. So we'll see if they score a bunch of goals in the Elite Eight games here. The other thing he says, a couple of weeks ago, he says our goal is to try and get into that top 8, and then every game is a cup final, which is what makes the postseason so difficult and exciting at the same time. It's why March Madness is so popular and so exciting. Literally, to win it, it's a 5 one-off games, 5 cup finals. So, I mean that this is where PV is good, right? Because they approach these games, I think, like they should. So, Valley's been obviously had a great season, but sorry, Ben, I think your Tigers lose to PV here, and PV goes deep this year into the tournament.
Well, it's interesting. These are two teams that do not have a lot of history. We were told the other day it was the first time that they'll meet in the regular season or postseason. I had to do a small correction because when I was a freshman, my first game I ever played for the Tigers was against Pleasant Valley. But I'm guessing that, if you recall, when Pleasant Valley made the state tournament a few years ago and they were really good, Blake, we were trying to figure out when Pleasant Valley was even we're like, is that it? Where is that? When were they in new school? Whatever. And it was like since the 60s. So we were being idiots.
Yeah, Wayne let us know, didn't he?
Yeah. But, reality is no matter what, these teams aren't meeting a lot. So we don't have any history to go on other than, we've seen Wayne Ward and what he can do. No doubt as a Tiger, I'm shaking a little bit, but we've got the momentum. We've got Aziz. I don't know. What do you think, Siebes?
I said Wayne. I got Wayne.
Oh man, 2-1 here. All right, let's go Tigers. And then to me, this is also a super interesting matchup. It's not the most interesting because we've talked about those already, but Little Cyclones against the Little Hawkeyes in Iowa City. Ames at one point the number 1 seed number 1 ranked team in the state, and then Iowa City High sort of they've been hanging around that 2, 3, 4 slot kind of all year, but they had a resounding win to qualify for state. So
Yeah, and they got Jack Dancer, Drake commit, scoring loads of goals. Not sure he's going to play there at Drake, but clearly an effective player that all they do is win, seems like.
And one of the top coaches in the States too, right? There at Iowa City High. Mm-hmm. Jose Fajardo, I believe is how you say his name. known as maybe having one of the most decorated playing careers of any coach, probably in high school soccer. Not necessarily in high school soccer, but as a professional overseas and stuff. So he's obviously bringing some really interesting, stuff to the squad, because we don't see Iowa City High in the state tournament very often.
Yeah, and we've talked about this already on the pod this year. They were here last year, and it took everything from Johnston to beat him in the quarterfinal last year. I haven't seen Dancer play ever, so obviously we're not going to be at that game. So I would love to see him play just because he's a Drake guy, right? I think Pat and Kyle have done a good job to get the best players in Iowa coming to Drake this year with Mendez, with Fuentes, with Dancer and Benj, right?
Yep.
All four of those guys. So
it's big time for the Bulldogs.
So for my own personal enjoyment, I would love to see City actually win that game so I can see Dancer play live at MediaCom. And I think they're gonna edge Ames. I've seen Ames play. They can knock off anyone that's very clear.
Yep.
I think it's a tough trip to take, and then play late like that. And so I'm gonna say that the Little Hawks have the edge there.
I'm going to go them as well, mainly because we need Damien on the podcast and get his insight. So if he's not doing that, we're struggling. So I'm going to pick against Ames for that reason.
I do agree with my guys here. The Ames can beat anybody on any day, but it seems like Iowa City High, they're on a good little run. I think they're going to be too much for Ames when it's all said and done. So then that leaves us, we're all kind of disagreeing, but who we calling the state championship game, or who we calling the
I'm thinking
winner?
Dragons go again. Jimmy's going to figure it out, Stork.
So loyal.
Yeah, they're going to champs until they get beat.
Matthew?
Dowling. Dowling is due. Dowling has Mendez. Dowling are the state champions.
You know what I would love to see, boys? I'd love to see a Valley Roosevelt final, because there's murmurs, right, that the two teams won't play against each other, right? And we know the reasons. We know there are conflicting reasons. That we know that both sides have a story here. I'm a Tiger. I support my guys. So I think that when it's all said and done, Valley probably wins that game in the final. But, man, Big Daddy Reem, I'm pulling for you. I'd love to see you in the final, and I would not be disappointed if you beat my Tigers, because I think you guys deserve it. So, anybody?
I love it.
Lots of different opinions here. Slide into the DMs or the comments. Let us know what you think. Come by and stop to see us Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at MediaCom. We'll be there in the tent across the street. I think we're gonna have some pizza. It sounds like maybe some swag. It should be fun. And if you want to get on the pod, let us know. Oh, and then Monday we're gonna have a little watch party too. So if you're interested, hit us up. We'll let you know what the secret details are. What else we got, boys?
That's it for me.
Joe, sorry about your loss the other night. All right, here we go for a great week of soccer. Blake's all ready to go. We'll see you next week.